Joining us tonight to talk about expressing feelings. And my name is Sue Kelly, and I'm a behavior therapist with the Child and Youth Mental Health Program. I am a behavior therapist, I am a child and youth worker, and I have been a mental health professional for almost 40 years now. And I will let Michelle introduce herself as well.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I am a child life specialist and I've been working for Hamilton Health Sciences for 20 years, working with families in different ways. So welcome. Okay, expressing feelings. So we've got a scenario here. The babysitter is coming over and
Yay,
the
we get to go out.
parent going out for a date night. So how can the children possibly react to this lovely babysitter? Any
Anybody have
questions?
any ideas? Just type in the chat. How are the children going to react? Parents are going out. Maybe anticipate once we're out of lockdown and they've been so used to having you around and you finally get to have some freedom and you get to go out. How are they going to react? Is everything going to run smoothly? They're going to say sayonara, see you later. Have fun, mom and dad. What are they going to do?
Oh, excited, might be jumping up and down, getting a little hyper. Maybe
Okay.
they're going to be a little shy and anxious. Maybe they're going to get clingy and do some clingy behavior.
Don't be going. No, no going.
Maybe angry. Why are you guys going
Hey,
out?
yeah,
Hi.
you're taking me with you. I want some of that good stuff,
Right.
right?
Hmm. That's right.
Yeah. Shouting, getting upset. Yes, clingy, anxious, all of that. So when you think about where your kids are coming from, like their emotional experience, this is a very simple image that we put up on the screen. And kids are very emotionally driven. So, the heart represents that big emotional response. And the little circle, the little blue circle, is sort of like their thinking brain. And it's the exact opposite for adults, right? So adults are more in that thinking, rationalizing, problem solving, that's where we are, and less driven by that emotional part of ourselves, right? So we're complete opposite from our kids. So really just sort of understanding that our kids are all about that sort of, intense emotional response, and we're trying to rationalize and make sense with them when they're being driven by, like, hey, this isn't fair, and like, I just want to go too, and, or I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling scared, and we're trying to make sense with an emotion, and it just doesn't gel that way. Okay?
So the emotion could be that they're excited, and then the behavior is silly behavior. So this is what we see. We have the emotion, and the emotion makes us act in a certain way. The emotion could be anxiety, so the behavior is the crying, the clinging to the parent, and the emotion could be frustration, so then the behavior would be a tantrum. And sometimes we have, a mixture of all of this happening at the same time, not usually one emotion at the same time. So, how do the parents react? Well, maybe they're seeing this and they're not happy. Stop acting this way. Maybe one parent is like, oh, maybe we shouldn't go. Let's give some hugs. Let's just stay home. Maybe this is a bad idea. Embarrassment. Of course, the one time we go out, how are we going to get this babysitter to come back?
Parents feel
The
guilty.
dad. Yeah, maybe guilty. The dad maybe is thinking like, I just want to get out of here. I'm excited to go. Like the child's upset, but they'll get over it. They'll be okay. And maybe the end result is that the date is going to be a little awkward because it didn't go so well, right?
Yeah. They end up sitting there talking about the kids,
Yeah. Or not at all because one
or
did
not at
not
all.
agree with the other. Yeah.
Yeah. We shouldn't have gone. We shouldn't have gone. Right? So
Yeah.
lots of guilt, right, and resentment for going or pushing me to go. Could be.
Yeah. Exactly. So we are the same way. Whoops. So we have that emotion and then we act a certain way, right? So we are the same and our emotion makes us act and that doesn't go so well.
So emotions are something that are in constant motion, right? So they're not static. They don't stay in one state. And they really are that driving force behind our behavior as adults and our children, but any human being. So they are what cause us to have any kind of a reaction and do something, right? And they will fluctuate in intensity, right? So we can have an emotional response that is, just sort of ho hum and, but it's kind of like lower on the intensity scale. Or we can really have that intense, like really loud, in your face kind of an emotional response. And it really can motivate some of those troublesome behaviors that can really make, either siblings or parents even feel very vulnerable and maybe devalued or disrespected, very unsure. How do I react to this situation? What are my next steps? How am I supposed to handle this? It really makes us, sort of feel off of our game as a parent, in terms of now, what do I do with this?
So we have the hot button activity, and this can be, this is a good activity to do. And you can do this afterwards as well. Maybe if your partner's not here with you, you can kind of do it together and think about what is your child's behavior that irritates you, that you're embarrassed about, that is a trigger for you. And then what emotion comes up. So you might feel frustrated, irritated, overwhelmed, anxious, defeated. We have all these emotions that go along with that child's behavior. And then when you feel those emotions, how do you react? It could be that you shut down, that you get louder, that you punish, that you say, I'm not dealing with this. So, I'm going to get somebody, my partner, to come in and step in. And, we want to look at, is it helpful or is it unhelpful? And those emotions are real for us as well. However, our brain is not under construction anymore. Brain is under construction until 25, right? So we are able to kind of do better problem solving in the moment. We can also think about this ahead of time. This is my child's behavior. I know transitions are hard for them. I know getting to school is hard for them. So we need a plan, but even with a plan, these emotions are going to come up, these behaviors are going to come up. So what is my alternative approach? So this is how I'm reacting now. Is it helpful? Is it unhelpful? And then what is an alternative approach? Anything else on that, Sue?
I just wondered if anybody wanted to walk through an example that they might be experiencing.
Or behavior that you find frustrating or puzzling that
Yeah,
your
does
child
anybody
does?
want to walk through an example? Does anybody have like a behavior that they want to try to walk through the hot button? You can just type it in and then we can kind of guide it from there. Okay. So you can always print this off from the resource page afterwards and use this as a
There is.
tool.
There's notes. We have to slide down.
Oh, oh, oh,
I get triggered with yelling
oh.
and fake crying. Okay, I walk away to give myself a time out. Okay, so yelling. Okay, so the feeling could be frustrated, angry. What else, Sue? Overwhelmed, maybe?
Well, I mean, yeah, confused as well, right? Confused, like, what do I do with
Yeah,
this?
confused. Yeah.
And the reaction is that I'm walking away. I might be trying to avoid dealing with it, right? Because I don't know what to do, so I'm avoiding dealing with it.
So, it's good to walk away when you are feeling agitated to cool off. However, if you walk away without saying why you're walking away and saying you're frustrated, I'm getting frustrated, the message to a child that is in their own distress in that moment is, I'm not dealing with this right now, and you are on your own. So some children will actually start reacting more to really let you know this is bothering me. So you're triggered by this behavior, and we sometimes think they're doing this on purpose, right? Which sometimes they do act out on purpose because it gets a reaction. But sometimes this is a true emotion. Like Sue said, they're very emotional, but it's triggering to us, right? So they're crying over spilt milk, and we don't care about the milk, but they do. They're crying over something that we think is trivial, but they are upset. And then the message is, I'm walking away, and you have to handle this on your own, which can cause more issue. So what is an alternative to walking away? Or if I kind of gave you the answer of what one thing you could do.
So there were a couple of other solutions to, it was a slightly different situation, but about providing some validation around the emotional experience, maybe providing some warnings, right? So, maybe some using some when then kind of opportunities, like when you calm down, when you use your words, um, you know, then we can talk, then we can do something else. Um, you can maybe use some of those kinds of alternative approaches.
So if it is working and you're announcing that, then that's good. But the when then, when you stop yelling at me, then I will talk to you. And this is a plan ahead kind of thing. What do you need? And then maybe even you have a code word that that when you say that code word, right now we have to put a pause. This is getting heated because in the moment we're having these discussions, but we're usually not thinking very straight, and the children are very emotional. So if it's an ongoing thing and we're having the same effect, we might need to change things up.
And I did like the validating, the suggestion of validating the emotional experience that the child's having. I think that's a really good idea. And, it's certainly letting them know that you're hearing their frustration, you're hearing that they're having a tough time right now. And then you're asking them, right, that what do you need or how can I help? Rather than that sort of getting in their face, right? So giving a little bit of validation for the experience that they're having right now, for sure. That was really good. That was a really good opportunity to kind of walk through that. And it gave us a chance to sort of help you to kind of put it into sort of real life play for you to see how this could, sort of play out for you in your own situation. So use this for yourselves and use it as a tool. I mean, it's not something that's going to, be automatic right away, and it might be something that you use as a reflection where you've had situations that maybe didn't go really well, that maybe you can sit back afterwards with your partner and talk about it and say, what do you think we could have done different, or how could we have handled that situation differently or better? And then maybe next time we're planning ahead to think about, so when this behavior comes up, this is how maybe we can, sort of tackle it.
Yeah.
So you can use this as a reflective tool for those kinds of situations.
Yeah, and the one example was a single parent. So if you're not able to switch off, and you do feel like you're really giving more and more, and you don't have that break, I mean that is us, you know, in our stress zone. So what are those things that you're doing to turn the volume down for yourself? And it is good that you're teaching your child to walk away, to deal with it in a positive way, as long as they see it that way and not like, I'm out of here, I'm done, this is enough. That you are explaining, you're being disrespectful, you're screaming at me, so I'm going to step away right now. And you're showing them what you can do instead of fighting it out or, just punishing and yelling and screaming. So, all good things, but especially as a single parent without support, we have to work a little bit harder because at taking care of ourselves and knowing when to ask for help, or maybe
Yeah.
doing things a little differently because you have less in the tank because you're doing more.
And I think Michelle really did a good job of explaining, about why it's so important to explain why you walk away, right? Why you
Mm-hmm.
need to take that break, why you need to take your foot off the gas. And it really, if you think about it more in terms of role modeling, that you're role modeling that for your child, that I'm having a really tough time with this right now, and I need some time to think about it, and we can come back to it, and it helps them, and maybe you can help them to figure out what can you be doing right now while, maybe you're calming down and I'm calming down. And then we can come back to it. So have calm down activities for them, calm down activities for you. Perfect opportunity to help teach them about some of those opportunities to use calm down techniques, right? To use some of those opportunities to build those skills. It's a really good role modeling that you're doing. So it's not about abandonment, it's about teaching, right? So you're
Mm-hmm.
teaching them a skill, and if you can keep that in your mind, it may help you shift what you're doing and thinking about what you're doing. Instead of thinking, I'm doing something bad here, I'm doing something negative, it's really actually doing something very positive and beautiful by teaching your child a set of skills, if you can set it up properly.
So
So
IQ,
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
okay,
Go ahead.
IQ contributes to 20% of how successful we are in life. So thinking about that, I mean, social skills, being able to have emotional regulation, it's very important. That's people that do well, have emotional intelligence, and are able to regulate their emotion. They know how to handle disappointment. They know how to interact with others. They know how to read other people's emotions. These are skills that are going to help you in your personal life as well as your work and your school life. It's going to get you jobs. It's going to get you friends. It's going to get people to like you and to want to be around you. And if we're lonely people because we have a hard time with our emotions, it's going to affect other things in our lives. And then it adds more of those really tough emotions that make it even harder. So teaching your children these skills are really, really important.
So again, when we have these behaviors that are presenting themselves, it really is just the tip of the iceberg. It's a very small part of what is actually visible and what is going on. So what we see is like an iceberg. It's what's above the surface. And what is actually going on that's contributing to that behavior is so much bigger and a lot of times not visible to what we can actually see. So, and even this list that's on the slide is quite small, right? So we have the emotions that aren't visible, we have our thinking processes that are not visible, where they get caught up in sort of those negative thinking traps, their values, their beliefs, but we also have environment, we have all kinds of other contributing factors if there are any mental health issues, physical health issues, learning disabilities, all kinds of things can be contributing to those lagging skills of being able to control and have that resilience with their emotions and being able to control and manage those emotions. So if anything is lagging anywhere else, it's going to have an effect. It's like a compounded thing, right? We have to teach those things first before we're going to have sort of that effect on the behavioral response, right? So if we can help them with learning about, managing sort of the other situations in their life and get control over those areas, then it's going to sort of slowly seep into being able to make better choices about behavior, being able to calm down the emotions. They're going to be able to learn the tools, and they're going to have the capacity to learn the tools to be able to turn down the volume on the emotions.
Okay, so we have a poll here, and you can just check off all of the things that your child might be struggling with. So Louise is going to pull something up.
There you go, everybody. So you can just go ahead and click and check as many as you'd like, and you should see the results as people are checking off their box. I should add that there's more options if you may need to use the scroll bar on the right to
Lots of black and white thinkers too.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of sleep issues too.
It looks like our biggest one is the sleep and the difficulty handling change or unpredictability. And what tends to happen is with children that are very rigid, that like it their way, we do that for them to stop them from having the meltdowns and to get upset. And then what we teach them is that it has to be a certain way. And when they go out into the world and it's not that way, they have a harder time. So when you have a child that's very black and white, very rigid, we really need to give them more gray, but we do it in a gentle way, and we do have to change things up and tolerate their distress. But again, you're not dropping them into the deep end, you're taking little steps. But if they have to sit in their own chair, they have to have the purple cup, you can't change things up. I mean, some parents, I remember one mom, she couldn't even change her purse and the child would have a meltdown. So you're going to be doing things a little bit out of order. Maybe we're going to say we're going to the playground and then we're going to the grocery store, but we're going to reverse that. So we're helping them learn that even though this wasn't exactly what we wanted, how are we reacting with those emotions? What can we do that's helpful? Realizing there is going to be a meltdown, but if we're constantly accommodating, then we're teaching them that it has to be a certain way. But sometimes we're tired and it's just easier to give them what they want because we don't want to have the fight. It's just a lot harder to reverse that pattern. And just looking at the things, they're poor problem solvers. We have to give them more opportunity. They have learning difficulties. Imagine what it's like to go to school and be stuck. Maybe depending on if they're homeschooling or if they're in the classroom, other things come up for them. They get easily distracted. They see their friends are finishing things up and they need help. They have to be pulled out of the room. It's embarrassing. Like there's a lot of things that might be going on for them that's tough. And then we give them the lasagna and they didn't want lasagna and their heads pop off. It's not about the lasagna, right? So like Sue said, we're looking more
Yeah.
underneath the iceberg.
I want to talk a little bit about that sleep issue, the restless sleep. There can be a lot of things going on with that too, and I wanted to address it since it was so high here. I mean, we've got kids right now that are on lockdown. So thinking about things like, are there routines? Do you have good routines for them around bedtime and, scheduled times for getting up and whatnot? Are there times that are arranged for reducing some of that screen time, right? Because they are having a lot of that screen time. Are they having outlets for other activities and being able to get out in the backyard, kick around a ball, have some physical time? Um, time to de-stress. A lot of that restless sort of sleeping is around thinking, and the mind is still kind of going and going and going and going. So is there an outlet for them to be able to, either journal or draw or have some quiet activities where they can kind of get that out, and sort of have a release? Have a discussion, have a little chit chat, do something around bedtime routines so that it's not just an automatic transition, shut the TV off, time to go to bed. There needs to be a better transition. So thinking just in general about, bedtime routines, regular routines, screen time routines. Are they getting that physical activity in as best as they can in the times that we are in? Because all of those factors can be contributing. What is their diet like? Lots of factors can be in play here when we're talking about restless sleep. So just, give that some thought about what's going on in the environment, and give it an overall look. And again, if you're having continued problems with sleep, it's something to have a discussion with a doctor around as well.
There's a question here, Sue. Is the rigidity more of a personality trait or something they grow out of?
Rigidity. I mean, one of the things that we know about personality traits is that, 60%, and people aren't going to want to hear this, but 60% of the population is more difficult, and 40% of the population is more easygoing. So chances are that, 60% of your children may be just more difficult and they may be more rigid. So it could just be that it is a personality trait. And will they grow out of it? They may not necessarily grow out of it, but they may learn ways of how to manage that rigidity because they're going to have to, right? Or else they're going to constantly be in conflict with people, right? So it may just be that they learn strategies to have to manage their rigidity. That may be part of their own personal growth as they mature. But it could very well just be part of a personality trait.
Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so we've got the Sunday night blues, and it's usually because we have the school the next day. Our fun weekend is done. And so this scenario comes up on a regular basis. This would be a great example for planning ahead, not on a Sunday night, maybe on a Saturday afternoon where you have nowhere else to go and no interruptions. But, emotions are going to come up for the parents. Your emotion, thoughts, and behaviors could be what? What could be possibly going through your head when your child is struggling? So what would be some of those things that are coming up on a Sunday night because they've got school the next day? What are the emotions, the thoughts, and behaviors of possibly the parent? And what about the child? So maybe we'll start with the parents. Any ideas? If you can't imagine, can you imagine what somebody else might be going through? I don't see any answers coming up. So right here in this situation, you've got a parent with a child that looks like they're distressed. What is the parent possibly going through? Okay, anxious about the week ahead, trying to get organized, and total anxiety about the next day struggles. Yeah. Anxiety, tired, forward, anxious, not wanting to sleep, clingy. Weekdays have more tasks to do and rushing. No one likes that, even young kids. Yes. Oh, we got lots. There's such a lag. It's like a whole bunch all of a sudden.
Oh, that's disappointing. Disappointed to do more happy things
on the weekend. Yeah, so all those things are happening. And then when we're feeling stressed out, we're thinking about all the stuff that we have to do. I saw this recently about Sunday, self-care Sundays, and how for adults, a lot of it is not self-care Sundays because we're planning for the week ahead. We've got to get started. We've got to, what's happening? How are we preparing? And I didn't get enough time to do all the things that I wanted, and then we've got to deal with a child that is now stressed out, and I'm stressed out. Right? So we have a lot of this happening in explosions, depending on how we're reacting to our emotion and how we're reacting to our child's emotion. So this is very easy to do in the moment right here when we're not talking about our personal issues, but this is what we want you to do with your situations that are happening on a regular basis, to look at it like this, to step back when you're not in the moment, to say, this continues to happen. What can we do to change? How can we react differently? And what can I do to be able to take my foot off the gas a little bit and change my mindset that my child is not trying to give me a hard time, they are having a hard time.
So I think we're gonna try and play this video. I think this would be a good opportunity to play the video.
Okie dokie. I'm gonna switch over to that. And so everybody
I talked a little bit about validation, so this is a great little video.
Once I click play, everybody, the video will run. It's just under 3 minutes, and then after that, we'll close the video window back down again. And so, Michelle, you might want to mute.
So what is empathy? And why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions very diverse professions where empathy is relevant and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you can climb down. I know what it's like down here. And you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Love that video. So we talk about this, validating the emotion and that empathy versus sympathy. And we really want you to try to put yourself in your child's shoes. And this is about their emotional experience, right? Problem solving and that, how can I support you, and that let's do this together really gives a very different message to your children. This is about being heard, and it's not about excusing negative behavior. It's not about saying that it was okay to do not good things, right? Or helpful things, or things that were destructive. You're not giving permission for bad behavior, but what you're doing is you're validating and giving permission for the emotional experience that they're having. And then you can go back and talk about how we deal with those emotions, right? But it's okay to feel that and experience that with your child. And then they're like, yeah. And you're going to get more dialogue, and you're going to get more information, and you're going to be able to reach a different place where you can problem solve and come up with better solutions and ways of handling things if you start from this place. Do you want to add anything to that, Michelle?
No, I think a lot of questions that we get are, where are the courses for the kids? And my children need to learn this, and my children need to deal with this. And this takes a different mindset shift that our children don't know how to deal with their emotion, and depending on what they're dealing with, some are going to have less of that skill and need more patience. And this is our role as the adult to say to them, your emotion is okay. We're going to work on this together, but we're going to work on this together, and I'm here to support you. And that in itself, validating, is going to turn the volume down on their stress. And problem solving is never the first thing that you want to be doing when they're calm. Problem solving might be happening even the next day. The purpose of validating is to help them to calm down, so then they can start doing their own problem solving. Because of a lot of us will give advice, we jump in with fixing, and it's like, thanks, Captain Obvious. I know I shouldn't have hit that kid. I know that I should have studied more. All those kinds of things. And we get into, let's fix it, let's make it better. And the message to the child is that you're a disappointment. You should have done things differently. And this emotion is an inconvenience to me. And it doesn't take away your emotion. It doesn't take that away that this is a struggle. And of course, some children are a lot more work. However, they're little and we're the adult. So we have to step back a little bit. And the only way to dig underneath and kind of really figure out what's going on and how we can support them is with this first step. So you can start building that rapport and the child feels safe with you. And then we'll be able to open up and talk about what's going on. And then you can do that planning ahead. And even then, brain is under construction until 25, depending on their deficits, depending on what's going on in their life, emotion's going to come up. Right?
Brene Brown has a lot of really good adult-based resources that you might find useful. And there is a book as well called The Power of Validation that you might find helpful for parenting and understanding how to introduce validation and learn the skill of validation. It's not a really expensive book to pick up. I'm sure that Louise can probably even put a link in for you into our chat
Yeah,
while we...
that's what she said. Yeah, it's all going to be in the resource page. Yeah.
Okay, so we also want to think about broadening that sort of, vocabulary that they have of emotions. And this is an emotion wheel or a feelings wheel that you can just Google this image from Google. There are many different versions of this. They have very simple versions if you have really young children. But the idea is here that we want to get them to use a more sort of diversified range of emotions to explain how they're feeling. Mad, sad, glad, and bad is great when they're, 2 and 3, but we want them to start to pull out, am I frustrated? Am I bored? Am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I feeling ashamed? Am I feeling embarrassed? We want them to start to use, that deeper, richer sort of vocabulary that gives a little bit more depth and understanding and richness to explaining exactly how they're feeling and what their emotion is. It just helps us to understand it, and it helps them to really understand it as well for themselves as well as for others. So using this and playing games around emotions and looking at faces and playing all kinds of fun games around emotions can be really helpful to help kids explore emotion identification.
And here's just another example. This is from doodlelearn.com, and it's a downloadable that you can print off for free. And it breaks things down. What makes me feel calm? Maybe you've got a child that doesn't really know what calm looks like because they're normally at a 3 or a 4. What makes them feel frustrated, angry, and furious? They may not have realized that those are 3 different levels of frustration and anger. And what are those things? So when we dig a little bit deeper and give them another opportunity to communicate, and this may take more than one conversation, but then we can really figure out what's making them furious. What makes me furious is the way that my brother eats and how noisy he is. It makes me angry that the kid beside me always uses a pen and they're supposed to use a pencil. So we don't realize that this is going on, and then we can open up and have those conversations about how do we learn to tolerate some of these things, because you have to be able to tolerate some distress. We can't take that away from kids. And then what is your role? Is your role to tell on your friend that's using the pen? Is that your business? And if they're a black and white thinker and very rigid, this is rule breaking, so I need to step in, I need to say something, and this is the adult's role. And if the teacher notices that they're using a pen, then that's okay. But if they're not, so all day you've been watching this kid, no wonder you're stressed out, right? So getting more of that information, thank you for sharing, give them some time to think about it. You can use this to label when something didn't go well, maybe the next day we're going to talk about it and say, you were really, really upset about this. Did you feel furious, angry, or frustrated? And tell me more. Help me understand. Okay, so kind of using those kinds of questions instead of saying why, because why is a conversation blocker. You're going to get a lot of I don't know, I don't know. So help me understand. This didn't bother you before. You can try to speculate what it possibly could be, but try not to jump in and answer for them because they may be a little intimidated or scared that they're going to get in trouble if I tell you the truth.
HALT is just a really cute little acronym that can be helpful for kids to use as well, and you can post something like this for them to reference, you know, sort of where they're at. Are they actually feeling hungry? Because emotions can also be driven by feelings of hunger. Are they feeling angry and sort of all the emotions that go along with anger? And again, lonely, which also can include feelings of boredom, and then tired, right? So when they've pushed the limits and, you know, they're feeling tired, but they still want to stay up, they want to watch that last show. Again, you know, it's time, and we might be starting to see those behaviors as a result of actually we've just pushed the limits, right? So think about using something like this as a reference and maybe posting it so that you can, you know, have that for them to just do a quick check and say, like, do I fall into one of these categories?
And we've mentioned visuals the whole time, but visuals are really important. And, you know, this is very simple. It's from Kid Points. And Kid Points has all free downloadables that you can go and get yourself. But what are they feeling? What are the different emotions that they're feeling? And each emotion has a reason for it. So you could even, like anger, they're wanting to stop something, they're setting up boundaries. You know, sadness, they want compassion. So what could they do for each emotion to help them feel better or turn the volume down? Again, not something that you're doing in the moment, but you can take a look at these 4 faces and say, so when you're feeling angry, what could you do? When you're feeling sad, what do you need from me? What could you do as well? And trying to empower them with learning how to use those tools on their own, because we're not always going to be around them. So at first we can facilitate that, but then how do we support them with learning these things and stepping back a little bit and letting them try?
Again,
Just
this
another,
is just a free chart,
yeah.
just a reference
Yeah, you
tool.
can take
It can
pictures
be
of
really
them.
cool. It can be cool doing pictures with your own kids, right? Getting them to do this, or, you know, do like a little mini, like, you know, charades or something where, you know, you're using pictures or getting them to act out emotions or whatever as well. Have fun with it.
Mhm. Mhm. And teaching skills is important. So relaxation is one of those things that, again, you're not going to be teaching in the moment. You should be making this an everyday thing. You know, you don't just eat healthy on Sundays and you don't work out once a month. So if you're not doing those things yourself, then we get easily irritated. Not getting enough sleep. I get very hangry. You know, if I haven't eaten, I get irritated. You know, so if you have a bunch of things happening and you don't do anything to refuel you, then our tank is constantly low. And then one bad thing happens and our heads pop off. But it's because our tank is so low, or our agitation is already so high. A lot of children, parents will say they go from 0 to 100. And like I said earlier, they're probably not at a 0. They're usually already kind of buzzing a little bit. They're like a 5 or a 4 most days out of 10. So these things help turn the volume down, and it's finding things that will refuel them. What makes them feel good? So doing some square breathing. There's some really cute videos that you can watch. You can just plug these ideas in and see if you can find a YouTube video or, you know, a meditation that will work. having a location where they can do some coloring, or their Lego can stay up and they don't have to tear it down each time. Maybe they like puzzles, or they like to shoot hoops. What are those things that help them refuel? It's not about going to the spa. It's about doing things every day that make you feel good. And that's even for adults, sleeping and eating, right? So children learn what they live. And a lot of us were brought up not to deal with emotion, and happy emotion was the only one that you expressed, and you keep all the negative emotions to yourself. So this could be a learning curve for you as well. So sometimes parents have to start with taking care of their own needs before they can support their child, because they get easily triggered, right?
And again, these are just some tools, creating like a quiet space, a Zen zone. Again, like the drawing and the different tools, the chew toys, things like that that they could use.
Yeah.
And some additional resources that'll be in your handout as well. Does anybody have any questions at all about the presentation, or have any feedback for us before we close off for tonight? Thank you so much. You guys were wonderful. You gave us lots of good interaction throughout the presentation. That was wonderful. Useful and helpful for everyone.
I'm going to pop the resource page link onto I put it in the notes box there, but I will put it into the chat directly as well. You'll get a follow-up email that has all of this information on it, and I've just added a couple things because this session was also has a recording from the fall, and so a lot of the links are there, but some new ones popped up tonight, so I've already updated the webpage with that. And so please go ahead and click on those links. You'll get that in the follow-up email, as well as the feedback survey, which we do love when people are able to take a minute and fill that out real quick and let us know what worked and what else you'd like to see. Checking to see if there's...
I'm just noticing there's some comments here. So, thank you. I'm glad that you did find it helpful. And that, yeah, you do have to apply these strategies myself, as I'm an emotional person as well. And that's okay. And genetics, it is genetic, right? If you're an emotional person, your child is probably a sensitive person as well. And then you get triggered by their emotion, by their agitation. So we have to be mindful of that as well. And sometimes we scoop up what other people are throwing out there. Someone's having a bad day at work. It's like, then our day kind of gets bad. I had a good day walking in, but this person's been miserable. So now I'm miserable. So it's being aware of that and trying not to hook into other people's emotion, but that is really tough to do. So yeah, these strategies will help you, and it'll be great role modeling.
There's not a lot that you can do in the moment. It's about trying to take your foot off the gas and help your child to... Safety is always first and foremost in the moment, so making sure that your child is safe. But I mean, really, it's about sort of redirecting them to a way that they're able to calm that down. If you can create a calm down space where they contribute to creating what's in that calm down space, and encouraging them to be able to use that calm down space where they can go to when it is sort of like more in the moment, they're not going to be able to figure out what to use in the moment. But if they have that predetermined and they know that this is their space, that is somewhere where they can go. But it's about sort of giving them those steps and those tools and planning ahead for what do we do, right, when emotions are big, and thinking about that ahead of time and coming up with that plan and having tools and things ready to use, and they're aware of what those tools are.
Yeah, because, we could tell you, be aware of triggers, try not to, try not
Yeah.
to get into that. Well, life happens. And sometimes we're like, we didn't realize this was an issue because it's not about that thing. It's about all the other things that are happening. So, like Sue said, it's a lot of that planning ahead. And then we just have to be calm and be there for them. And with what's happening at the grocery store, we may have to leave the cart and just calmly go to the car and relax. And, maybe we're going back, but having those kind of strategies. And sometimes if we just step back and allow them some space, ask them, what do you need? Do you need a hug or do you want some space? You can ask some of those things, but a lot of it, like Sue said, is that pre-planning, right? I'm glad that you guys found this helpful. Thank you for coming. And when you're done, you just press the little X up in the corner and then we're all done.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Hopefully we'll see you at some future sessions too. Thank you, Sue and Michelle.
No problem.
You're welcome.